Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with best-selling author and former journalist Mike Bond. He is the author of a timely new thriller called Crude and is considered an expert on the world crude supply and oil refining. He is a specialist in Russia and Eastern Europe who draws on his inside knowledge as a former war journalist, intelligence expert, U.S. Senate candidate, diplomat, investment banker, and international energy company CEO to show us how easily our current political powder keg could ignite and destroy everything. He is also the author of 12 best-selling novels. We cover all of this from his base in France. Enjoy.
Okay, let's rock and roll as we are.
Okay, cool. So,
Yeah.
Mike, it's great to meet you. Thank you, sir, for taking a minute out today. I'm looking forward to delving into your latest book, Crude, and your world of writing.
Well, thank you, Joe. From my point of view, I'm delighted to be with you. I mean, it's a fascinating show. I'm not a jazz guitarist. I'm a rock guitarist, so I'm a little out of my depth here. But it's a very exciting show. I've looked at some of the older sessions, and they're very interesting.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I kind of branched out and have been interviewing more creatives, so it's really good to have a nice collective of people that are doing wonderful work out there as you are. So I really appreciate that. And I'd like to begin our conversation with your work and your life by asking you, 4 years ago, we were trying to wrap our heads around this pandemic. How are we going to get through it? All the ramifications. How did you ultimately survive that COVID period, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
That's a fascinating question, Joe. Wow. How did I survive? I suppose dumb luck, luck of the Irish. It's my wife and I live most of the time in France, so the French were incredibly on top of on top of it, and they had the injections that we did take. Simply because, as weird as it seemed like the better of two options. What being basically my background is when I was young was a war journalist, but also an investigative journalist, and particularly investigative of government action and misaction. And so from the very beginning, I didn't swallow the idea that the virus or COVID came from a bat in a cave 800 miles away from where it first broke out in the city of Wuhan. So I did a lot of research, and some of that research shows up in the book that have just now published, Crude, where I actually, one of my characters who is Chinese, tracks it down, and basically in my book I pretty much prove that it came from the Wuhan lab, and that that Dr. Anthony Fauci was one of the funders, and he knew all about it. So it just kind of reinstalled or magnified my awareness that usually in anything important, the government doesn't tell us the truth. And how has it changed my life since then? Not at all. I'm aggressively risk taker. I'm aggressive risk taker. I mean, I'm a mountain climber and motorcycle guy, and I take lots of risks. And so that's just another risk that adds another dimension of foolishness to our short and silly lives. I don't know if that's a valid answer, but that's kind of off the top of my head, Joe.
That's one of the best answers I've ever gotten. So no, that's beautiful. And I'm curious, yeah, it's fascinating what you've talked about with COVID, because I inherently the whole time felt like there was all these holes in the theory, and I didn't want to get into the conspiracy level of it, but all of it just seemed a little bit strange. And I've talked to a lot of people that even went along with the mask mandates and everything that happened, but it all felt really weird, and it would be very strange to think that we were hoodwinked so bad into something. But what were we going to do about it if we had been hoodwinked into it?
The funny thing is, I think most of the major things that happen to us without our approval, we're hoodwinked into. I mean, most of my book, Crude, is about the unnecessary wars and the danger of nuclear war. And all of this is another form of being hoodwinked in the sense that all of this is going on behind our backs by the government. And I'm not a conspiracy theory anti-government guy at all. I've worked for the U.S. government in the past. But it's clear to me that anything important that's going on, we're not told the truth, whether
Yeah.
it's present elections or the truth of the Kennedy killings or the truth of all of our military interventions overseas, all of our coups, all of that, including the present war in Ukraine between the United States and Russia. When I talk to people, Joe, they have no idea of the history that went into creating this war, and which I write about in Crude. So I think that it's one of the things that happens, I suppose, always in life. We're hoodwinked to a certain extent. I suppose that in the 1860s, for instance, or 1850s, people living in Boston and New York had no real understanding of what was going on in erasing the Native Americans from the West, including obviously Kansas. Uh, so I think being hoodwinked is a state of reality in all countries. It's not just the United States. I lived most of my year in France, and the French government is masters at hoodwinking the population. Again, that's a very long answer to a short and specific question, but there you go.
No, I think that's a great textural backdrop to what we're talking about here. So with all of that in mind, being closely intertwined as a journalist and working in the government and all these things that are a part of your narrative, how do you remain hopeful?
How do I remain hopeful? Because sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I suppose that's a short version of it. But no, life is a magical mystery, Joe, for me anyway. And I've always been. I'm very positive about life. I'm in love with the same woman for 52 years, and have children and grandchildren whom I love. And actually, I love all children in the world, and that's why in the dedication of my book, Crude, is to all the children of the world, basically. And there's just so many good things that happen in the world that that's what turns me on. I get ticked off at betrayals and times that we get screwed. And I'm very ticked off, for instance, that the governments of the world, several governments, have chosen to hang the machete of nuclear war over our head. But I'm on day. I wake up hopeful every day. It's a state of mind. I think. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that this world has enough good and magic that can override all of the nefarious things that go on. And I've increasingly realized that interviewing people from around the world, there's so many people every day that wake up doing things for the right reason. And
Mhm.
we have control over how we react to these things. But we also have a level of us that can hold things into some level of accountability to
Yeah.
ensure that all of the children that have a future hopefully have a better one, because there's a lot of them that stuck their necks out, like Mandela and Martin Luther King and a lot of these other revolutionaries, Gandhi and all these people on a more magnanimous level. So I think all of that combined gives me hope that Goliath can find some level of consciousness and we can avert certain disasters in the future.
Yeah, when you spoke about Mandela, I think about him all the time. Not all the time, but probably every day he comes into my head, uh, knocks on the door of my consciousness, and I'm always happy to talk to him. But how did he live all those years in solitude? How in prison? How? I mean, I've been in jail a couple of well, several times, and I mean, after a few days, man, I'm punching the wall. So how did he go for 19 years? It's a state of incredible grace, I suppose.
Absolutely. So, Mike, let's go back to your childhood. What was your dream? Did you always want to be a writer?
Oh God, no. My father was a professor of English literature. My mother was probably the most well-read person I've ever met. Uh, but all I wanted to do was climb mountains and chase girls. And they were both musicians, but they were vocal artists. And my father was singing on the radio when he was 16, and my mother, they were, Irish. They could. My father had it in his head. He had 1,000 Irish songs that he knew by heart, and so I right away, because children tend to be rebellious, and so I decided I didn't want to sing or anything, but I grew up in the world of music and in the world of wilderness, and I hated school, so I used to cut school as much as I could and go out and hike and just go into the woods and just explore. For me, one of the most important things in my life, Joe, has always been what's over the next hill. If you're in a forest, and the forest is relatively endless, and I'm a 6-year-old kid, I get to a hill and I look, well, a half a mile away, there's another neat hill. I wonder what I can see on the other side of that. So that's kind of how I grew up, and I never had many friends, but the friends I had were very profound. And as I got older, music became very, very, very important to me as a guitarist.
So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. My computer is not terribly helpful. Please tell me again, Joe.
Sure, yeah. Who's been a kind of a hero or an inspiration for you in your life?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Um, Let me think. Well, it's my dad for sure. He was a lovely man, brilliant, a World War II combat vet, incredibly courageous man who was also very quiet and shy. Um, so he was a hero, and my mom was too, because she was such a remarkable person. Uh, and outside of my family, and I had, being Irish, I had a big family, lots of wonderful uncles and aunts, many of whom I still love to this day, though they've been gone for many years. My grandmother, who came over to the United States alone at the age of 5 with no family and not speaking English, and died a wealthy woman. She certainly is a hero. But outside of the family, I would say certainly President Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, his brother, whom I worked for in his last presidential campaign before the CIA killed him. Uh, who else? Ernest Hemingway, Albert Camus, in terms of writers. A lot of NFL great players. And I played quarterback myself a lot. Not in the pros, but I loved to play and would play every time I could find anybody to play with. And Joe Montana was not a hero, but I mean, I love to watch him play, and I love to watch Tom Brady play, and I love to. I just love to. I love a good football game. So, and anybody who goes out and fights for the to protect people, to protect young people, they're my heroes, certainly.
So, if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now, interview them, hang out with them that you find inspirational or fascinating, who would that be?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Uh,
Uh,
wow. Gosh, I'd have to think about that. Interview them and talk to them. I don't know. I used to be for many years. I was a very involved Democrat. I was a U.S. Senate candidate from Montana, Democratic Party. I was very senior in the Al Gore campaign, and I've drifted away from the Democrats now quite a bit. Probably, I'd say Tucker Carlson would be the person I would most enjoy meeting. I'm going to be actually meeting him quite soon as a result of this latest book. But I'm very much of a loner, Joe. So I don't look to other people too much for uh, inspiration or interest. To me, what is the most, might be Elon Musk. I think, as I was when I was young, and how I met my wife was working on the International Space Station. So I think I would say Elon Musk would be the guy I would most want to talk to.
So what is it what has it been for you to consistently do the work that you do? You're uncovering all of these ideas, exploring them and putting them out to the world. What has been that consistent fulcrum in your life to do that and to also evolve as a human being yourself?
These questions are incredibly good. I mean, we could sit down in a bar and talk for a week about any one of them. Um,
Yes.
I would say that the two things that drive me hardest are the exploration of the unknown, and that's the unknown inside ourselves, the unknown outside in the mountains, the unknown in space. And the other, I'm always wanting to know what I don't know and to learn what I don't know. And the other thing that drives me is unfairness, any form of what's the word? In any form of people doing harm to other people. I'm very much anxious to. I'm very much anxious to uncover the wrongs that people do and get away with. That's how I ended up basically as a war correspondent because I hate war and I've seen a lot of it and it's atrocious, atrocious, atrocious. And uh, one of my poems that has gotten quite a bit of acclaim is a very short one. It's once you know war, you will never know peace again. And I have a heavy dose of PTSD that nothing drives away. So I'm fairness. I would say I'm the two things. Returning specifically to your question, Joe. The first thing is try to explore, wanting and hungry to explore everything that I don't understand, whether it's outer space or in our own minds or in the beauty of a river, anything. And the other thing is unfairness and every child that grows up without a good home, every child that grows up in danger and sorrow, every person who's young, who dies young, all of that unfairness, I fight to uncover.
You know, in our professional careers, we have moments or we have years or months that really push us and make us grow, and it can be bittersweet. What was that for you? Was there a particular assignment, a book, a year in your professional life where you really your eyes were opened and it really helped charter the path that you're on right now?
Well, that's a very good question. I was always a rebel. I didn't do well in college. I got thrown out, and at age 19, and I drove a truck to make money for 6 or 7 months, and saved $400, and went to France and lived for 4 months on $400, and that was very eye opening. The fact that I did not like school was eye opening. Again, war is very eye opening because it's more horrendous than anybody can possibly imagine. Uh, Meeting my wife was certainly eye opening. She's very different than me, much smarter than I am, and it's been invaluable to know her for 52 years. I've learned a lot from my wife. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question, Joe, but that's a first stab at it.
No, you totally did. I'm curious, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my God. Where do you come up with these questions? This is a mind rigger. I'm going to have to go lie down after this interview. Uh, yeah. Uh, Best advice I've ever, oh, I know what it is. Very clearly, it's in a book, not a verbal advice, but Carlos Castaneda wrote a book, the anthropologist, American anthropologist who wrote all the books about the Mexican Indian. He in one of his books, a separate reality, he said, you must always learn to follow the path with heart, and you will know the path with heart when you are happy walking it. And that's always been how I've judged going forward in life, is that to find the path with heart, which may not be the easy path, but it's the one that brings one joy and a feeling of fulfillment. So I would say that has been one of the major drivers of my life.
So let's say tonight you have a dream, you run into the 18-year-old version of you ready to go out and meet the world and do the good work. And you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained along the way. What advice would you impart? And would that 18-year-old version of you listen?
When you say a virgin, you mean a young woman or a young man or
Oh,
either?
a version, yeah, just that age of you, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I would say, first of all, I'd say be a little careful about sex since they're a virgin. That's what first comes into my mind. But learn to enjoy sex and have as much of it as you can possibly stand. That would be my advice. Sex is in one of my books. I'm writing a series on America since the 1950s right up to the present. It's a 7 volume series, and the 3 books are so far have been published. The first one is America, and the second one is Freedom, and the third one is Revolution, which takes us up through the death, the murder of Bobby Kennedy. But in in one of them, I just now I've gotten myself off track a bit, but uh, I don't know how to phrase it, Joe. Can you give me a little more background on that question just so I don't mistake it?
No, 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 you got it. No, I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what I was going for. It was just the advice that you would give your younger self based on this life you've led, something that would help you into the future.
Yeah, I know what I was going to add, and then it slipped from my mind. In my third book of that America series, Revolution, I have a conversation between two people who are in love. One of who's the woman is a brain researcher, and the guy is a rock guitarist. What else? And and they have a wonderful affair. And at one point, the guy realizes that God is the only thing that's God is what creates life. So what creates life? It's not marriage, it's not friendship, it's not books, it's not God on a pedestal somewhere. The only thing that creates life is sex. So I think that's one of the major awarenesses in my life is that we want to be careful we don't follow false gods.
For sure. So, of everything that you've seen, all of the geography, what's one of the most unexpectedly magical places that you've been to?
Oh my God, I've been at so many, and so many are ruined now because I'm 81, and when I was 17, 19, and when I was wandering the Sahara Desert when I was 19, and been wandering ever since. But when I was 22, I think it was, I ended up going to Nepal to mountain climb. And at that point, Nepal was pretty much closed off. And usually, when I would be in the mountains or anywhere hiking, I would be the first Westerner that anybody had ever seen. And the women working in the fields would drop their tools and stare at me as if I came from outer space. But that was the most lovely experience to be in and basically it was pretty much a Stone Age culture. And where you wanted to go anywhere, you walked. And I would walk for days and days and days through these beautiful landscapes, just to get from one place to another. So that was probably the most extraordinary place I've ever been. Of course, it's all gone now. It's roaded and it's got uh, it's everybody. And what happens when cultures like this, like Nepal, when they meet the modern world, everybody leaves the countryside and goes to the city. So now Kathmandu is a huge infestation of poor people, and like the same thing with Mongolia. I was recently in Mongolia for quite a while, and everybody moves to the city, and they lose all of that connection with the land, and they end up impoverished because that's what cities do: is they attract people that will work for cheap. So those two places. I've loved many places. I live in southern France. I love that. I love Italy. I love Spain. I've been all over Latin America. I love that. I've been all over the United States, and I love that. So, and anywhere that's not a city is what turns me on.
So, of everything that you've done and become and achieved in your life, what are you the proudest of?
What I'm proudest about? That's funny. That's a great question. Several things. Somebody asked me something similar to that recently. Uh, I've been extremely active environmentally over the years, simply because I love the outdoors. And I one thing I did during after my career in with NASA. I didn't work directly for NASA. I was a consultant, but I was involved in the development of the International Space Station, which is how I met my wife. She's an engineer, and but in addition to that, I worked environmentally for a number of years as a river basin analyst and planner, and I led a team of for the state of California. I led a team of 52 scientists and planners, and we created a master plan for the Smith River drainage in Northern California, which is the largest wild and scenic river in the lower 48 states. And we, out of this 395 square mile area, we managed to protect nearly all of it from logging, and it was redwoods. Most of it, or a lot of it, was redwoods, which were worth 60 at the time. That years ago were worth $60,000 per tree. Now they're probably worth $1 million per tree. But we saved an enormous forest. Therefore, we saved the river system, and by saving the river system, we saved the anadromous fishery, which is basically the salmon in the steelhead. That was a huge success. Also, having a lot of background in ecology, I'm totally opposed to wind turbines. And I live part time on a small island in Hawaii called Molokai, which has been rated by the National Geographic as one of the 10 most beautiful islands in the world. And a bunch of corporations came in with the help of the Democratic Party and wanted to cover the island with these hideous turbines. And again, I eventually ended up also as the CEO of an energy company, and so I understand how useless these wind turbines are. And we fought for 2 years to save that island, and we stopped it. And that was certainly a success. Also, a number of my books have had quite a bit of impact. I wrote a book called The Last Savannah about fighting I was involved with a group of military. We went in and we went after the elephant poachers and reduced their number substantially. Not in any peaceful way. They ended up dead as could be. But the background of that book eventually affected the treaty on saving the elephants from poaching, and certainly that was a victory. In another one of my books called House of Jaguar, I was a correspondent. I was the last journalist in Guatemala, foreign journalists, when over 160 journalists had been killed by the death squads, which were supported by the CIA. And I was at the risk of my life all the time, but I got out of there and I wrote that book, and it had a big effect on reducing American tampering in Guatemala, which was horrible. The thousands and thousands of deaths and torture, managed basically by the Central Intelligence Agency. So I managed to fight that, and I was proud of that too. I've done a lot. And I'm proud of any time that I can help somebody who needs help. That's all.
So, Mike, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
My perspective, Joe, I'm not sure I understand. Again, it's my
Well,
computer's part.
oh yeah, no, you're good. It like your perception, like everyone has this perception of who we are based on the
Ah,
role we play in life, but you being the driving force, what's your perception of you?
I think that I never think about myself. I'm like this wind-up toy. I just wake up in the morning and I go. So I don't really think about myself, but I know I love my family. I love the mountains, the outdoors, the ocean. I love sex. I love rock and roll. I play a wicked guitar. I'm heavy metal guitar, basically. And I love music. I adore music. And what my perception of myself, God, I never think about that, Joe. Gosh, what the heck? Uh, I'm
You
just
just
a loner that in love with life and in love with my friends and in love with the world. I suppose that would be my perception of myself. And
no, you did.
may I add something else
Yeah,
to that
please
too,
do.
Joe?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm much more cognizant of my failures than anything else. My failures, which are many, uh, really tick me off, and I get frustrated by that. So I'm much more conscious of what I could have done and didn't succeed in doing than anything else.
I get that. That's a part of the human condition. That's for
Yep,
sure. Yeah,
yep.
that was a beautiful answer, Mike. This has been wonderful, man. I'm so glad that you're on this planet and you're putting so much good out there and raw, wonderful energy. Thank you for your time today. It's been an honor.
Well, I tell you, Joe, I've been a long time since I've had questions like these. My brain's going to be fired up for days. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to have had an opportunity to speak with you, and I wish you the very best for your wonderful program. And good luck and enjoy Kansas City, the
Yes,
home of
sir, Mike.
jazz.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And send my love to France and keep doing the wonderful work.
Thank you again.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.